Constitution dialogue.
Right, thanks very much to Justice Tandon as well as to my colleague Devika. Let's get cracking with the next Power Pack panel, because I already have sitting in front of us people who've been deep into constitutional matters and of course political matters sitting with us up front. The former Chief Election Commissioner of India, Shri S.Y. Qureshi, is with us. Let's give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We all recognize him, we all know him. We are going to be discussing One India, One Election. Is it doable? Can it work out? None other than the former Chief Election Commissioner of India to have that debate with Supriya Shrinate, who's the national spokesperson of the INC. Shri Aman Sinha is joining us, senior advocate of the Supreme Court of India, and Shri GVL Narasimha Rao, now a former member of the Rajya Sabha of the BJP, somebody I've sat and debated with for many, many years. GVL ji, so good to see you. Could I request all of you to kindly come on stage and request my colleague and executive editor of NewsX, Megha Sharma, to kindly conduct this session.
Now, when we talk about one nation, one election, it's a hot topic. It has been discussed, debated for certain years now. And of course, questions being raised by the opposition over why is there a need for ensuring that one nation, one election is implemented in the largest democracy of the country. We all speak about the pertinence of one nation, one election in our history. This was between October 1951 and February 1952 that there were simultaneous elections that had taken place at the parliamentary level as well as the 22 legislative assemblies that went to poll. Now the cycle of one nation, one election continued smoothly up until 1970 when the then Prime Minister of the country, Indira Gandhi, decided to dissolve the parliament, dissolve the government and call for fresh elections. So I'm going to start my conversation and I'm going to get Mr. S.Y. Qureshi to respond to me on this. Do you think it's pertinent, it's important, and the time has come for the need to have one nation, one election, primarily because it saves time, it saves energy, it allows perhaps for more voters to come out in large numbers to cast their vote?
Well, this subject has been on the table for the last 10 years or more. Current controversy started when Mr. Narendra Modi, before he became Prime Minister in 2013, he said that all three tiers of these election bodies, elections should be held simultaneously. And he gave the reasons: cost, paralysis of administration, no policy decision can be taken. And these were the reasons, good reasons. What he did not mention, even to make his case stronger, which I would like to, that because of frequent elections, casteism, communalism, crony capitalism, corruption is always there. So at least if we have elections once in 5 years, for the 4.5 years at least we'll live in peace. But repeated elections mean repeated hate speech, repeated unpleasant narratives and discourse. So this is the case for.
Okay.
But let me complete my thing. From the point of view of Election Commission, this is the nicest thing to do because voter is the same, polling station is the same, the machinery, the district administration conduct all the three elections, they are the same, security apparatus is the same. So once the polling station has been set up and secured, you as a voter, I as a voter go and press 3 machines instead of 1. Election Commission will be the happiest because for 5 years we'll go and play golf. But our convenience cannot be the consideration. Now, India is a big country. Sometimes I have read many articles, there are so many countries, look at Sweden, Belgium, These are small countries like the size of Karol Bagh. So if we compare with them, we are 90 countries rolled into one. So we are a unique country with a strong federalism. Even America may be a big country, but from coast to coast, they speak the same language, the same culture. We are a commonwealth. And therefore, what has been going on so far, why disturb something which is working? It should not be disturbed, and the reasons are not good enough. And I would, during the course of the discussion, I'll give you an alternative route, which has not been discussed. If I break down the cost for you, if I cut down the period for you, so you should at least look at it.
Okay, that's an interesting analysis and fair points made. GVL Narasimha Rao, let's hear it from you as well. Do you think if we keep having elections every 2 months, every 3 months, whether we take a look at Jharkhand, that happened, Maharashtra, that happened, in Delhi there is going to be an election that is going to take place in 2025, January, this keeps politicians, political parties on their toes, and the push and the motivation that comes to give maximum performance to the voters, because at the end of the day, they are seeking the votes of the voters.
No, see, elections are the integral and the most important part of a democracy. And we are holding elections to elect governments to govern us. So let's not forget the main purpose of elections. It's the integral and the most vital part of democracy. And if you have elections every 3 months, you are continuously in the election mode. And no government can work very peacefully. I think let's be very practical. If there are elections 6 months down the line, it will certainly be difficult for any party or any government to take decisions which are in larger national interest, but which might take some time for people to really understand and appreciate. So there will always be a hesitation to take some measures which are in larger public interest. So therefore, until 70, it worked very fine. So were we not a federal country until 1970? Were our constitutional framers, did they not consider this to be a violation of federalism? Post-1970, this cycle broke because of repeated fall of governments, dismissal of governments, and as a result, we have really a very hodgepodge cycle today. Certainly, it is in national interest, it is in interest of governance, it is in public interest, and in a democracy, that must be the paramount importance, nothing else.
Okay, Supriya Shenate, what do you have to view, particularly when he says, where does the question lie of this not being federal, this being draconian, as has been the opposition raised against it?
So let's just step back and say, why are we debating this? Why are you doing this? What is the trigger? The trigger is that the Union Cabinet has adopted the report presented by the committee headed by former President Kovind. It is likely to table this bill. All of us here who are fairly learned and understand parliamentary proceedings know this cannot go through because the government doesn't have the numbers. 50% of India's states are not going to ratify this. It will not be able to pass the muster of the House. This is a hot air balloon being floated so that summits like these debate this. This is a hot air balloon being floated so that we do not discuss the more pertinent issues that should be discussed. To my mind, and I just step back and say, what are we discussing? We are discussing a solution where we are trying to find a problem. We are trying to discuss a remedy where actually the disease does not exist. Let's just step back and say that. You know, this is a voodoo economic argument that this is going to save cost. This is hoodlum being talked about that, you know, because till 70s. Yes, till 70s they may have been because India became independent in 1947. We had elections thereafter. Obviously there was a harmonious cycle and then there were governments that fell. And the reality today is that whether we like it or we don't, there has been a rise of vernacular parties. There has been a rise of regional political parties. And you cannot ignore the fact that the BJP or the Congress are not the only custodians of democracy. And are you telling me that if you have simultaneous elections, you will be curtailing the term of not one but multiple state legislatures? Why should that happen? Is that not anti-democratic? Have you taken the states into confidence. Every single chief minister of the opposition, some chief ministers of the BJP, you speak to them off the record, they are vehemently opposed to this because this is a direct assault on federalism.
Okay.
I just want to add one point. This is not going to become a reality, definitely not before 2034. Even if it becomes a reality, are you going to curtail terms of 17 assembly legislatures? Is that what you're likely to do? And why should that be done? Are people in UP or in Delhi or in Karnataka or Telangana not, they've elected a government. They want that government to act at their behest. Why should those legislatures be dissolved? And then, of course, I'm sure through the course of the discussion, we'll be talking about scenarios. What happens if the central government falls? Do our state legislatures go into elections? Multiple points. But to my mind, it is a solution where we are still trying to find the problem.
Okay, all right. But there have been important points made by GVL Narasimha Rao.
I'm sure there are important points made by me as
yes,
well.
Yes, absolutely. I'm seeking an answer from you with regards to that. When you're talking about money, when you're talking about funds, when you're also talking about how there are perpetually elections taking place, so there are resources, important resources that are invested into it, that are expended. And do you think there can be a way? And as S.Y. Qureshi said, it may not be that there are
it's a very elegant mathematical
place, but could there be an alternative? Would political parties be willing to look at an alternative to reduce the costs for maximum public welfare?
I am presuming that this room did not miss on the sarcasm that was coming from Mr. Qureshi. With all due respect to him, and I think we missed the point that he was being sarcastic to a level. But this is a very elegant arithmetic argument, but the assumptions are very dubious. And I would want to say that once again. What do you mean by extra resources? Even with this report, even with the bill that has been passed by the cabinet, you are not going to have one nation, one election. There are local body elections that are not going to happen with this. And the reality is that there are about 30 lakh elected representatives in our local bodies. Those elections are not happening with this. That will entail an entire bandobast, poll parties, polling to happen all over again. So this is not one nation, one election. It's a very fancy acronym, ONOE, but that's what it is. It is not going to, I don't think there's a problem. So what is it seeking to resolve?
Okay.
I agree with you.
There has been blind opposition to a lot of ideas.
Can I finish my point, GVL? You can come after that. And I think, the country has to step back and assess this argument being made. Extra expenditure. Why should political parties not be responsible? I am with the class that believes political parties need to be more accountable for the funds that they spend. I am with you on that. I am with the people of this country on that. But this is a very dubious argument that just because elections are going to be held simultaneously, it is going to curtail expenditure. What about the assault on democracy? What about the legislatures that will be curtailed?
And whose benefit? You're not answering that. Nobody is answering. How is it an assault on federalism? Or an assault.
Because GVL, there will be elected.
Just 1 second. We had elections in Andhra Pradesh.
Allow me to answer that.
Let's have a very meaningful debate, not just give a lecture. In Andhra Pradesh, in Odisha, we had simultaneous elections in 2019, 2024, and even 2014. So, was federalism in Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, in states like this, was it under danger?
So, by your logic, GVL, in 2024, if there was one nation, one elections, should governments in UP, should governments in Bihar, should governments in Telangana, in Karnataka, and Himachal be dissolved because you wanted to push through this grandiose idea? And this is
no,
much
these
like
are specifics.
Why
these
is it
are
specific? There are 17 legislatures which you will need to dissolve.
What is being mentioned in the bill, you don't know the bill yet. What the report said is it will be a one-time transitory measure. It will be a one-time transitory measure. How will fall of government's midterm be ensured? How will this cycle not be disturbed? All these are being a part of the bill.
Can I ask you a question?
And there will be a debate.
I have a very specific question.
Okay. Why do you need to oppose it?
Tomorrow, if the elections happen simultaneously and for some strange reason the central government were to fall, should all of India's state legislatures also go into election? That's a dubious argument.
Let's try to have an answer on that question from Aman Sinha, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court. Now, all these questions, technicalities, the legalities that will have to be figured out, drafted, because it's a complex issue. And Mr. Nath, who has raised these important questions, what happens if the government falls at the central level or at the assembly level? Do we have any recourse to fall back on if we want to ensure that there's one nation, one election?
Actually, only 2 articles of the Constitution are required to be amended, primarily Article 83 and 172, which prescribes that the maximum tenure of a union legislature or a state legislature is 5 years. So for the unexpired term, supposing that if a house is dissolved or there is loss of confidence in the particular leader of the house, then in that scenario, the election would happen for the unexpired term. So therefore, it does not require any large-scale amendments. The amendment which is required under Article 368, there is a procedure to amend the Constitution. And as far as these 2 particular articles are concerned, it would not require ratification from all the states because under Article 327, the union legislature, which is the parliament, is empowered to enact laws with respect to elections to union and state legislature both. Now that apart, the foremost question which confronts us is that whether one nation, one election is prudent, desirable for our country or not. If it is desirable and prudent, then we must find ways and solutions to imbibe it in our system as it was happening from, as you rightly mentioned, from 50 to 67. This year itself, Megha, we had general elections from March to June. Thereafter, we had elections in Jammu Kashmir. We had thereafter immediately elections in Haryana. Then Maharashtra and Jharkhand results have just come out and we are on verge of announcement of elections in Delhi. Election year starts 1 year before any election is announced, and the first casualty is governance and administration and the massive public welfare schemes which are there. And therefore, we must all find ways to somehow or other ensure, because and there was a technical report also on this in the committee that Supriya was also just mentioning, and all the panelists were in fact mentioning. And Qureshi ji also alluded to that fact. The committee had opined that it would lead to about 1.5% of addition to our GDP because the expenses which are entailed are somewhere in range of 6 lakh crores. The public expenditure is also, wasteful public expenditure is saved. Inflation also, there is solid data to suggest that after these regular frequent elections, inflation also rises. And if you have simultaneous elections, as happened from 50 to 67 also, there is saving of public, valuable public money, and which leads to lower deficit, which leads to lower inflation, in fact. So there is not only this, Qureshi ji was also alluding to the fact that the level of public discourse, that is also going to improve. That is also one point that we must all keep in mind. And that apart, if I may just complete, I did not interrupt anybody. That apart, the uninterrupted development, the uninterrupted administration that can go on, we see that children's education is disrupted, schools are taken over for elections, teachers come in, security apparatus is put into mobilized all over the country. And model code of conduct, obviously, nothing, it's a state of policy paralysis, and it's not only just 1 or 2 months, it is that entire period of election year during which this policy paralysis continues. Therefore, in my assessment, in my opinion, clearly one nation, one election is an integral part of, the foundation for developed India, and it will be for the welfare of the country.
How the democracy should
Can I make
function.
a very small point,
Supriya,
please?
yes.
General elections ended, and the Election Commission had the liberty to announce Maharashtra, Haryana, Jharkhand, and Jammu Kashmir together. They could not do 4 state assemblies together. We are talking about a general election in the center and all state legislatures. But this is exactly, I think the point that Aman was trying to make is a direct quote from the report. This is what I call dubious assumptions on the report. On what basis has this been assumed that inflation will be curtailed? On what basis is it going to add 1.5% to our GDP? This is exactly the argument, and I was an economic journalist back then, and GVL used to be on my shows, when demonetization happened. Demonetization was imposed on this country, and then we kept looking for problems that it would solve. It has not solved a single problem. Today, cash in the economy is twice as it was in 2016.
The entire economy
Today,
is
please let me finish.
digitized
Let me
today.
finish.
No, no,
Let
you
me
can't.
finish.
No,
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 no, let me
I'll have
finish.
to counter
Otherwise, I'll
this.
start interrupting
Today
you.
we are a formal
I'll start
economy.
interrupting every...
We are the sixth largest economy.
GVL, 36
because-
lakh crore is the amount of cash in the economy.
No,
it was 13 lakh
you
crore in
can't give your
2016.
own-
I am not giving my figures. I'm giving figures from the budget
Today,
of India. I hope you
are-
respect those
have
numbers.
we not become
That's
the fifth
problem.
largest economy
The
from the
problem with
11th
the
largest
BJP
when you
is
were in power?
You find a
If the
solution
decisions
to
that were
which you are
made
now
were
looking for a
erroneous,
problem.
we would
That's
not
the
be a strong
reality.
economy
The
today.
reality also is that this report says hate speech will be curtailed. Why should there be hate speech at all during elections? Why are we not talking about this? The hate speech is coming from the Prime Minister when he's saying
Okay,
Mujra
let's-
Sonia
let's-
Gandhi,
let's
Rahul
not
Gandhi,
take pot
Pankaj
shots.
Saudagar,
Let's not
were
take
they
pot
not
shots
hate
at each
Because
other.
Because
political
Supriya
parties.
mentioned my name, I will
I'm
have
going to quickly
Khoon ki
request
kheti.
Mr. S.Y. Qureshi
He will come up
to
with better
intervene in
arguments.
this on the subject and
If you're going to
speak
interrupt
about
me, come up with
speak
better
about all
arguments.
these matters and speak about all these matters that have been raised by both political party spokespersons over here and discussing about what's the way forward. Do you think these are relevant, important, pertinent issues to be picked up? Whether we talk about saving money, whether we talk about if there is a possibility and potential of more voters coming out and casting a vote because we have one nation, one election, and also, the contention that has been raised by regional parties particularly, that, their relevance is going to be reduced.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to mention that when the Prime Minister started this debate in 2013, he insisted that there should be a national debate which should lead to a consensus. For 10 years we have been debating, but there has been no consensus. So logically, if there was no consensus, the idea should have been dropped. Now the decision has been taken unilaterally, and the idea is to bulldoze, which has become the norm anyway. Now, the reasons which were given, let me come back to that. It will cut down costs. Center for Media Studies, I think it belonged to your family. Since last 2019, like 60,000 crores. This time they say 1 lakh crores. What is spent? Very easy. 30-second solution for the Prime Minister. Put a cap on the expenditure of political parties. As you have on the candidate, from 60,000 it will come down to 6,000. Money problem solved. Secondly, it disrupts normal life. It is an exaggeration and it's a lie, I would like to say. I have implemented Model Code of Conduct. Just download Model Code of Conduct, all of you ladies and gentlemen. It's a 15, 16 page. And there is only one thing which is an irritant. It says no new policies will be announced. Why is it that all the bright ideas for development come to the mind of politicians after 4 years and 11 months in power? Just 2 weeks before the election, they have all the bright ideas, and they say the election commission is stopping us, or hell on them. Now, this is wrong. Take your decision. Nothing is taught by the Model Code of Conduct, except new on the policies, which you should have taken.
Okay, all right. Aman, I want to understand from you, and let's hear it. Can there be alternatives, and there can be variations to one nation, one election? Can we follow an American model where you have a midterm poll that happens, and every 2.5 years later, there are elections that take place across the states? Could that be a viable solution?
See, as far as one nation, one election bill draft is concerned, we are yet to see that. But in my opinion, it makes very, the proposals which are in offing should make very minimal changes. Article 82 itself provides that 82.1, when it starts, it says that Rajya Sabha will have a fixed tenure of 6 years. Now, the same thing has to be incorporated and imbibed in 82.2, whereby Lok Sabha will have a fixed tenure, and the unexpired term, supposing if, unfortunately some Lok Sabha MP expires or his election is set aside for whatever reasons, then the elections take place for the residual tenure only. The same thing would be incorporated in 82.2. So therefore, it is not any large-scale changes, nowhere near, affecting any or altering basic structure or, altering anything in the constitution, if at all. Actually, it is in consonance with 82 and in spirit of, having a full throttle democracy in our country. Now, that apart, one thing which Qureshi ji was mentioning, and Supriya took my name, although she forgot that I have also been on her debate many times, and she had called me. But one thing which is there is that I am sure she has seen the debate, the high-level committee report, there is a 100-page, technical report which is there, and they have opined on the reasons as to why and how they have arrived at this figure of at least 1.5% of addition to the GDP, and also of, lowering of public expenses. And if they have any objection, they could have put it to high-level committee, or, all the nice suggestions which are coming through, this could have been put to high-level committee. See, this is all work in progress, but we must realize and assess whether we are moving in the right direction. In my assessment, we are certainly moving in the right direction.
I have a huge problem with the composition of the high-level committee itself. So let's not get started there.
Can I?
Yeah,
See,
Qureshi wants to make a point, and then I'll move to you.
Just on this, the recommendation of the committee, Coven committee, itself has flaws. First it says that the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha elections will be separate, and Panchayat elections will be separate. That is not simultaneous elections, which they were supposed to do. Secondly, they say that Panchayat election will be done after 100 days. An election after 100 days is a separate event requiring totally new bandobast, and at a time when 15 million people who are our staff, they are all fatigued after the general election. And 300 days later, you call them again. So that is also not a simultaneous election. So what is being proposed? And thirdly, that the committee also said that there will be midterm poll. So that means another violation. But let me just one last sentence. Now, but this midterm poll will be only for the remainder of the term, which means that candidates will be spending crores of rupees just for a 1 year or 2 year term. So it is not reducing elections, it is actually increasing expenditure.
No, in the case, as Aman just mentioned, in the case of Lok Sabha by-elections, in the case of Lok Sabha vacancy arising, you're holding by-election to an entire Lok Sabha constituency. Only Priyanka got elected only a couple of weeks ago to Wayanad. There was a Lok Sabha by-election held in Nanded. One second, so by-election to Lok Sabha court seats are held. By-election to Rajya Sabha seats are held for the remainder of the term. Therefore, why not? In fact, this will be a disincentive for any party to pull down a government, because they have to face the election. So this will reduce the tendency. This will reduce the frequency of fall of governments. It will lead to greater stability.
I have something
by
to
default.
say here.
And in any case, you are saying one line, Srinath. Supriya, let me finish. See, you were saying at the beginning that people are not asking for this. This is not a priority for the country. No, why do you say so? Sometimes we don't even know what deformities that we have, what deficiencies we have. Once in a while, it's good to get a body diagnostic test done.
Go ahead. Then I'll ask you another question.
I am absolutely stunned that you are comparing two bipoles of Lok Sabha to the state legislatures. 1 second. Your voodoo economics has now turned into voodoo politics. You are saying this is a very pressing issue. No, the pressing issue of our times is joblessness, price rise, income inequality, a caste census, and getting Mr. Adani to answer some questions before now.
And Mr. Rahul Gandhi to answer about George Soros link.
All run
Obviously,
away from.
let's discuss and debate everything.
A warrant. Make him accountable.
Let's debate on one nation, one election, and we will discuss about other things in the subsequent debates that we are going to be holding. But Supriya, one interesting question that I want to ask you is when the regional parties are saying, they're scared that they're very...
question for CIA funding in 1967.
You answer the current question.
I would like to bring back the discussion to one nation, one election, and particularly when regional parties says they are upset, they are scared that their relevance...
Scared is a wrong term.
Their relevance is going to become minuscule. Now, I want to understand, do political parties don't have confidence in the voter to then make a decision that even if there were simultaneous elections taking place, they would have the common sense and the judiciousness to decide who they want at the center and who they want at the state level?
No, but that's a very flawed argument that is being made by certain quarters, the one that you just repeated. I don't think political parties are scared. I don't think anybody in Indian politics is scared of what is going to happen. I think people in Indian policy making and polity believe this is against the very grain of our constitution. This is against the federal nature of our governance. And I think they have every business to voice concerns. This whole thing about regional parties being scared. I mean, I'm a national party and so is the BJP, but we cannot negate the importance, the relevance, and the emergence of regional parties in Indian politics.
Okay.
The reason why they were not there in 1970s is why they may have not voiced concerns. Today they do.
Okay.
I'm going to make one point very clear. Governments will not fall. It will dissuade people from making governments fall. In the last 10 years, the 6 times governments were made to exchange hands was at the behest of the BJP, their ugly money, their ugly agency.
It was the Congress which did this 100 times before. Please mention that.
From Madhya Pradesh to Arunachal Pradesh
No,
to Goa to
it was-
everywhere to Rajasthan. You
It's so rich for the Congress party to talk about this.
The 6 times governments are being made
What
to
about
topple
100
is at
times the
your
Congress?
behest.
What
Don't
about
get me talking.
What about
Don't
the
get me
100
talking,
times that
because
Congress
you were
party
just
has
caught
done?
with your hand
What
in the
about
cookie jar.
Indira Gandhi
That's the
dissolving
problem.
democratically
You have been
elected
caught with your hand
governments
in the cookie
post-emergency?
jar. Please respond to a question I'm raising.
No,
In the last
I'm
10
asking a
years,
question.
You are the
Was
one who raised
it
that
not the
point. I did
Congress
not.
party
You are the one who raised that point.
killed, which murdered
Maybe you did not
democracy?
raise
Let
by
him
dissolving
make the point.
democratically
Supriya, you did. Let him make the
elected
point.
governments.
He's
Please
trying
answer
to get
that.
in between. You did
When
not stop
did we?
him. Don't stop
We
him.
have not
Have a-
dismissed one
Yes,
government.
I'm having a very unbiased,
We have not
impartial
dis-
discussion.
We have
Yes,
not
GVL.
dismissed one government.
You have bought and sold MLAs.
done-
You
Indira
have
Gandhi has
auctioned
done
MLAs
dozens
across
of
states in this country.
dismissals.
Please
You are
don't get me
undemocratic.
wrong.
I'm going to once again get Mr. S.Y. Qureshi into the conversation, and particularly about this regional parties and this fear that they may have.
No, I was keen to answer the question that the voters are very intelligent. There was a study of IDFC for 16 years, and over a period of 16 years, voting behavior was studied. And they found that if there is a simultaneous election, 77% people vote for the same party. If it is separated by 1 month, it drops down to 61%. And if it is separated by several months, the figures are totally different. And one example is Delhi itself. Aam Aadmi Party getting 67 seats in one election. 6 months later, BJP getting all 7 Lok Sabha seats. Therefore, simultaneous elections actually influence voting behavior adversely. And finally, I would like to say, the election is going on all the time. Well, election was happening in Jharkhand. Which one of you whose life was affected, tell me?
Okay.
Only election commission busy, media is busy, and the top politicians are busy. People's
The top politicians
made
run
your
the
point.
government,
You made
Qureshi
your
ji.
point, yes.
Top politicians are important part
Ask
of
them
the
not to
governance at the
electioneer, ask them
center.
to sit here and
Do we
do some
do we
government
no, do we disqualify ministers and
What
prime
policies
ministers
have you
or
made to
leaders of the
create
opposition
employment or
from
to rein in
campaigning
prices
elections?
or to bridge income
It keeps-
inequality
Aman,
in the 4-year,
ordinary-
11
Aman
months
also
that you
wants
Yes.
to make a point. Yes.
No, as far as regional parties are concerned, there was, I think, about 50, 60 parties were invited by this high-level committee. The majority of the regional parties have also supported this idea. And please envisage a scenario where, in fact, there was
Every
a
single
party
regional
from
party has
Goa.
opposed it.
There was a regional party from Goa, I'm forgetting the exact name, which in fact stated that because a national party, their energies, their resources will be scattered all over the country, even so their leaders, etc. Therefore, regional parties will get to focus on regional issues, regional leaders can thrive. So this is coming from regional parties.
It's a
Therefore,
dishonest
the
argument being made.
presumption,
Not a single
the
regional party has
presumption-
supported the HLC.
the
Just for
presumption
your
that
fine information.
regional parties, this is going to be biased against regional parties is just a presumption. There is no solid data with respect
Every
to
regional
this.
party
And
government
in
has
fact-
opposed it. Every regional
fact,
party
there
in
is solid
written
data to
recommendations
support
has opposed
that
it.
on
Please
large
don't
number of
misquote the
occasions there
regional
were
parties
simultaneous
here,
elections.
Just because they're not being
And
represented.
people voted one way in assembly and other way in national elections.
Okay, all right. I've had a very fruitful discussion, insights being put on the various aspects of it. I thank all of you for joining me and
Thank you.
talking about this very important integral subject today that is in discussion.
It's been a passionate discussion, no doubt. How fruitful it was, whether we come to a consensus, I don't know. I didn't see a consensus, but of course it's a contentious topic. And all our favorite speakers have come, all of whom, of course, you are very well known for TV. Let me request all of you to stay on stage. We have a special gift for all of you. Let me distribute it and get some photographs taken. photograph man of the first session of the constituent assembly.
उनको मदद कर दीजिए